Welcome to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everybody, William Harris here. I am the founder and CEO of Element and the host of this podcast where I'm going to bring you a lot of the best minds out there from the D2C space to help you improve your business. And on the show today, I have Valentin Radu. As a former e-commerce entrepreneur, Valentin Radu helps hundreds of e-commerce companies to improve their business and become customer-centric. As the founder of the CVO Academy and Omniconvert, he is helping e-commerce companies and agencies improve customer lifetime value by evangelizing customer value optimization as a new category, about which he wrote the first book, The CLV Revolution. I'm real excited to dig into that a little bit with him here today. But first, I do want to make sure that I mention the sponsorship. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is a performance-driven e-commerce marketing agency that's focused on finding the best opportunities for you to grow and scale your business. Our paid search, social, and programmatic services have proven to increase traffic and ROAS, allowing you to make more money efficiently. And with that, I want to dig in. Valentin, thank you very much for coming on the show here today.
Hello there, William, and hello, everyone. I'm really excited to making it happen.
Yeah, so CLV Revolution, and I remember you actually hosted, I got to be one of the guests on your CLV Revolution show that we did earlier in the year here. What started this? Why did you decide that this needed to not just be a topic, but a revolution? Why are you so passionate about this?
Yeah, so first of all, William, it's all about growing sustainably. And I think there are a lot of voices which are, let's say, misleading the e-commerce entrepreneurs, like I've been as well, towards spending a lot of money on acquisition. And they've sang the mantra of acquisition without customer retention for decades now. And I've discovered the power of customer lifetime value back in the days. It was 2011. And I was struggling as an e-commerce entrepreneur. We were making a lot of money, but we weren't making money at all. So the paradox was that our revenue was around 14 million and our profit were around $15,000. And it was really, really frustrating after 1 year of work and paying ourselves as founders so bad to wait for a year and then to look behind and see that you've made Google richer. So at that moment, I realized that maybe we are missing the point. Maybe we are not looking at the right metrics. Maybe the formula is incomplete. And guess what? It was incomplete because we've been acquainted with this e-commerce growth formula, which is still in the top of the head, is top of mind for many e-commerce leaders. It's traffic multiplied by the conversion rate multiplied by the AOV. But if you disregard customer lifetime value and customer acquisition cost, then you end up not being profitable. And now we are seeing this shift from growth at all costs to being profitable. So that's why I think customer lifetime value is the Cinderella, right, in the e-commerce arena. And that makes me aware that I have this mission, let's say, of making more and more companies thrive. Because after I've shifted my attention towards customer lifetime value, I've made my own company profitable and we've managed to do a beautiful exit. And that's why I've built Omniconvert. That's why I've built the CVO Academy. That's why I'm focusing on customer value optimization. And I think it's just a matter of time until companies will wake up to this new reality that they need more happy customers in order to thrive. And it's not about the one night stand, right? It's not about the first transaction. It's about building sustainable and authentic relationships with their customers, and pretty much that's the way to go in the future. And we are seeing right now that many e-commerce companies are struggling, and that's because they are not taking into account the unit economics. And CLV should be the North Star metric for those.
You started a can of worms here that I'm excited to dig into with you, because this is something that obviously, I'm very passionate about as well. At our agency Element, we focus significantly on profit. And we actually drive ads towards profitability, EBITDA. A lot of our customers share their actual P&L with us, and we make sure that we're optimizing towards, their bottom line, not the top line. And so you mentioned, first of all, one thing that you said was the formula was wrong. And I appreciated you used a formula that I know I've seen out there a lot as well that has irritated me for years as well. What's the right formula then? How, is there like a mathematical way of saying this is what we should be focused on?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's number of customers multiplied by the customer lifetime value over customer acquisition cost. So if this metric is going up, that means you have more customers and you are paying, and you have a sustainable ratio between how much you are getting down the line, which is customer lifetime value, and how much you are paying to acquire those customers. Unfortunately, few are the companies that are even aware about that ratio, lifetime value over customer acquisition cost. And the pity is that they are either overspending to acquire customers, either underspending, and they are not getting the market share that they could with considering the cash flow that they have. And now I think lifetime value is the bridge between the finance world and the marketing world. If you have companies which are nailing lifetime value, you have the CFO and the CMO are for sure friends, because eventually they are looking at the same way to progress in their company.
So Google actually came out with a really good article about this. I want to say it was just last year, about how the need for the CMO and CFO to work together. And it reminds me of a story, because we're very much the same way, where most of the time when we bring on a business, we actually meet with the finance team as well, saying we can't bring you on unless the finance team is on board with whatever we're about to do. And the good example that I have with this, there was a company that came to us, and at the time, I don't remember the exact amounts, but let's just say for easy numbers, they were spending $10,000 a month with their agency that's running their ads. And maybe the first month with us, they ended up getting a bill for $15,000, $20,000, something like that, right? Whatever that number was, it was more than what they were used to paying their agency. And typically, as the marketing team, we're dealing with their marketing manager or something along those lines. And I remember getting an email from him. Our team got an email that, he's kind of like freaking out about this. He's like, man, I'm going to get in trouble for this. That's a lot more than what we were used to paying. And I remember talking to him and just saying, wait a minute, though. We were able to, within 1 month of taking over their account, to spend maybe another $200,000 profitably for them. And as a result, it was like, well, let's take your revenue minus your cost of goods sold, minus the agency fee, minus the ad spend, minus the returns, minus everything, right? Minus your overhead. And I think they made about $800,000 more profit that month. And it's like, is it worth it to your CFO to spend $5,000 more on an agency that can drive $800,000 more profit? And he goes, well, yeah, I guess when you put it like that, that's an okay thing, right? But there was this disconnect between the CFO and the CMO for a long time, and I think we're starting to see that push back. And I like your formula for this. What are practical ways then that people can start applying this formula that you've talked about in their business?
Yeah, a practical way would be to simply come up with a different way to define success. So basically, that's what this formula is all about. It's about, if you have more customers, if you are getting more down the line than what you are paying to acquire them, then that means the company is thriving, is going very well. If on the contrary, if you look at the trends, right? Because it's the beauty of any metric is that it has the context. If you stay away from any kind of metric which doesn't have the context, because if you have, let's say your conversion rate is 2%, or let's say your AOV is $200. What does it mean? You don't know how was the conversion rate last year, or how was the conversion rate in the last month, or what was the AOV? Because once you see the trend, then you see where the company is going. And if you can see an upward trend, then that means the company is doing well. So let's say to put this to work, you start by leveraging those type of numbers, monitoring what that number is based on the number of customers, or multiply with the lifetime value over the customer acquisition cost, you get this number, right? So if you see the trend and if you see that this is going well, that's great. If it's not, then you should be looking, putting the customers under the microscope and I don't understand what's going wrong. And at some point, you need to understand these dominant numbers in e-commerce. And I keep on singing the gospel of dominant numbers in e-commerce or unit economics, because many companies are struggling these days because they've been relying on ROAS, which is just a metric, is not showing you pretty much anything about it. So you could have maybe your ROS is great, but what if you are selling the goods that are not having the same gross margin, or they have a much lower gross margin than the other one? So the company is doing worse than it can do worse with the higher ROS than it has been doing last month with the lower ROS. So that means you need to look at these dominant numbers. And the shallow e-commerce people are looking at traffic, conversion rate, AOV. Then some of them, they look at the gross margin and they realize, you know what, we need gross margin. We need to look at this. And some others are looking at things like customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, and customer retention rate. So this type of metrics, and of course, some metrics are more important than others depending on the business model. For instance, if you are selling mattresses, then the purchase cycle is so long that you simply can disregard the lifetime value, because it takes 8 years to get people to come back to buy again. However, if you sell cosmetics or fashion or beauty or food or nutrition or whatever, where the purchase cycles is way more faster, then you can't thrive in this economic context, because the competition is incredibly high these days. We have a lot of companies attacking, addressing the same number of eyeballs out there.
Yeah, so there's two things there. Unit economics that I want to come to, and the length of the LTV that we're looking at. So on the unit economics side of things, one of our favorite customers that we like to work with is a customer that has 100,000 products, because there's usually significant room to improve their profitability based on just changing up the way that they're running their ads without even changing top line revenue. And a good example kind of to what you were just talking about that I like to use is, let's say somebody has a product that's $200, and let's say that the margin on that is $50. Okay. And let's say that you have another product that's $100 retail value, but the margin on that one is $75. If you look in your platform and you spend $50 to acquire a purchase of product A and $50 to acquire a purchase of product B, the return on ad spend, the ROAS then on that first product is going to be a 4-to-1. And you're going to think, we did really good on that, but you paid $50 to acquire it. You only got $50 margin. You washed completely flat on that one. On product B, though, you paid $50 to acquire it. Your ROAS for that $100 divided by $50, your ROAS is 2-to-1. So that's half the return on ad spend, half the ROAS. But because the margin was $75 on that, you actually have a $25 profit on that product. And so that's a significantly better move for the business. And so we optimize people's catalogs around driving the most profitable sales for them. And I think that makes a big difference. The other thing, though, that you brought up that I like, though, where you go with this is the length of the LTV that you're looking at and what you're considering. And there are some times where it doesn't make sense to look at, a true full LTV, especially a company that has years and years and decades worth of data. You have to start to figure out how aggressive can you be within a certain context? And a lot of times what we look at is maybe like a 90-day LTV or 180-day LTV, and try to figure out what's that right amount based on your cash flow and burn rate, which I think right now is incredibly important because of just the overall macroeconomic factors that we're running into with the economy not being what it was. What do you think? Is there a sweet spot that you look at when you're looking at figuring out what companies should say to decide, well, how long should I look at? The 90 days, 180 days, 4 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to tackle something which I think is misleading nowadays, because there are more and more people focusing on customer lifetime value. And they are considering that lifetime value is the historical amount of the revenue that a company gets from a customer in the first 30, 60, or 90 days. Which this is not the lifetime value. Lifetime value is the predictive margin that's going to come to the company from a customer down the line. So that means if it's a predictive measure, then you should be taking into account things like the purchase frequency and things like the churn and things like the inflation, right? So you should be also looking at the discounts as well. So basically, if you want to be data driven, you can't just look at this simplistic way of seeing, okay, in the first 30, 60, 90 days, we are getting this amount. So that means, and in order to understand how to slice the time intervals, you need to look at those things called ADBT. For instance, in our technology, we have this automatically being calculated, which ADBT stands for average days between the transactions. So that means after how many days the customers are coming back on average, yeah? And when the chances for the customers to come back are dropping to, I don't know, 20%. So that means you need to understand the purchase cycles of your customers, which is way harder if you are selling, for instance, if you're a marketplace and you sell, I don't know, toys, but you also sell furniture, and you also sell cosmetics and whatever. So that's why you need to look at the blended lifetime value, and you also need to look at the hybrid customers versus the specialized customers, the ones that are there on your marketplace to buy only this type of, I don't know, they are there for cosmetics. So the model is getting a bit more complicated when you look at the different business models. However, to answer to your question regarding the how to look at the time intervals, you look at the purchase cycles and you define the lifetime value. So you slice the lifetime value according to when the chances are dropping below 50%. So basically, if your purchase cycle is, let's say, 36 days, that means in the first 36 days, 50% of the repeat customers are buying again. And you say, okay, this is the first time interval. That's one way to do it. The second way to do it, you slice it according to your financial exercise. You say, you know what, I'm paying people every month. So I want to see what's the lifetime value in the first 30 days, what's the lifetime value despite the purchase cycle. Yeah, I'm ignoring that, but I'm looking at this measure, which if it's, let's say, not as accurate as it can be, however, the inaccuracy is consistent throughout the time. Because if you are measuring, and that's the beauty of data, right? If you are wrong, be wrong on the entire time interval, because basically that figure is going to show you how much you've got predictive lifetime value throughout in the last 12 months, let's say in the first 30 days, and how that figure was varying throughout the time. And of course, if that's going up, that means you've done the right way. Now, once you have that, you also need something which is called the CAC payback. And I'm getting into the math here. CAC payback means how many days do you need to get back the money that you've paid to acquire a customer, right? So the CAC payback interval, or the time interval, means after how many days you are breaking even after acquiring a customer according to your lifetime value. Yeah. So that means if you are paying, let's say your CAC is $100 and your CAC payback interval is 20 days. That means in 20 days, you are getting back from a customer $100 back. And after that, it's pure profit or margin. So once you look at things this way, then you can connect with the financial model, because maybe you are leaving money on the table, but if you don't have the money to support it, so if your CAC payback is 6 months, then you can't invest like this, right? And that's where you need to connect the finance with the marketing world, because you are coming with a lot of data-driven solutions, and maybe you need finance, outside capital, maybe you need to raise money, but having a customer-centric model allows you to make decisions which are based on pure reality, based on your reality of your own business. It's not based on shooting in the dark, because at this moment, if you are an e-commerce leader and you are relying on ROAS to make your decisions, you are shooting in the dark for sure, because you don't know if you are under-investing or over-investing.
And you're usually doing one or the other. It's almost a guarantee that you're either over or under-investing. You're not investing correctly.
Yeah. And I have a story to share here, William, if you allow me.
Please, so, go for it.
We were back in 2015. I was working with the fashion brand. It was one of the fastest growing brands here in Europe, and they were making a lot of investments. So at some moments they were investing something like $50,000 on Facebook ads, and it was 2015, and it was Europe, right? Basically, they were present in Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, the Czech Republic, and they were going west, right? That was their dream. They got outside capital, and they were from an outside perspective, they were doing great. I met these guys. They were the entrepreneurs behind this company. They were ex stockbrokers. They came from the US with a lot of money. They invested into this e-commerce, and from an external perspective, they were doing great. Now, I dived into their data, so I got access to their data because they wanted to. Their investors, guess what? Who needs lifetime value, right? The investors wanted to see what's the ratio between lifetime value and customer acquisition cost because they wanted to raise another round of capital. So when we were looking at their data, I've said, you know what, guys, maybe from the revenue, they were doubling year over year. So the revenue was double, but the lifetime value was 20% lower year over year. Yeah. So basically that was a red flag for me. Then I looked at their customer retention rate. I've started to extract the net promoter score to see what's the NPS, and their NPS was below 40, which was very bad. And once we got to that moment when I realized that, you know what, these guys are not that they are not making money. They are about to go out of business in the based on the predictive model that I've built for them. So thanks to this, let's say, aha moment, they shifted the company, and they've realized that their product was the problem. Because with CVO, with this methodology that I've developed over and over again since that moment, with this methodology, you identify what's the issue, and you could have only 3 types of issues that are harming the lifetime value. It's either the product, which is the worst to have. It's either the customer experience, which is fixable in the sense of adjusting the customer journey and making sure that you're offering the right expectations and you're a bit above those. Or you can also have a marketing problem. Maybe you are not, let's say, persuasive enough, or you are not nudging the customers at the right time with the next purchase. And they had the product problem. So mainly that company, unfortunately, they got out of business due to the fact that they weren't focusing on lifetime value prior to investing so much into acquisition. So basically, that's why you need this type of customer-centric model.
I think we're seeing, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that take place right now as well. So economic downturn, a lot of companies that were focused on ROAS for the last couple of years, and it's kind of it's hit them in a really tough spot as they're no longer able to acquire customers the way that they were, and so they're trying to bank on lifetime value, and they hadn't focused there, and so I think that that's really starting to hurt them. So let's say, okay, so there's the 3 types of problems that somebody can run into: product, customer experience, or what was it, lifetime value,
or marketing. Yeah,
marketing. Yeah. Okay. So identifying the problem is arguably the most important thing. And I feel like a lot of people, they're trying to use a lot of other ways to identify what this problem is. But let's say that we identify the problem. Let's say that we figure out whether it's a product problem, a customer journey problem, or a marketing problem. Do you have any tips or solutions to address any one of these? Are there things that you've seen pop up over and over again where you're like, it's very often this type of problem, and here's a couple of recommendations on how to fix that?
Yeah, so the first thing that I recommend to companies in order to find out the problem is to do this segmentation. So to understand that not all your customers are your best customers, of course, and not all the customers are there to keep, because some customers you simply get them in order to get to break even, right? So even if you are, and by the way, just to share a metric with you, on average, 25% of the customers, you are losing money on them. So any e-commerce on this planet, they are losing money on 25% of the customers. And that means those 25% of the customer is not like, yeah, let's stop acquiring those type of customers. It's not about that. It's about focusing on the right customers and making sure that you end up being profitable for those 25% of them. Because those, we call them the bargain hunters or the breakups or whatever, yeah? So those are customers that are low value because they are there for the discount. But most companies are treating everyone the same. So if you want to get rid of the old stock, you blast your entire database. And all your customers will get these products with a 40% discount, let's say. But what if you could focus on the low value customers with the products that are at the discount. So you can destock the products that you have in your warehouse to those breakups. So mainly, that's the first thing that I suggest. Learn about your customers by segmenting them based on the RFM. And with the RFM, which stands for recency, frequency, and monetary, you end up seeing those are my best customers. Those are the ones that I'm after. And those are the brands or products or locations from where they are coming from. And knowing that will allow you to steer your marketing towards them. Let me share you another story from another brand, shoe retailer, one of the largest shoe retailers here in Central and Eastern Europe. They thought that their best customers were ladies in their 20s, so 20 to 25, because they've seen this in their demographics in Google Analytics, and they thought, okay, that's our audience. And they've made the assumption that if Google Analytics is showing me this, I better trust that data. But once we applied the RFM segmentation, and once we've ran this qualitative research and validated statistically on their best customers, we understood that their best customers were actually ladies, but they were in their 40s, and they weren't from large cities, but they were from smaller cities where they haven't got these shopping malls. So they ended up buying online from their store because they haven't got any other alternatives. The competitions was lower in those lower than 50,000 inhabitants in those kind of cities. And once they've realized that, and that's a good story, not like the other one, once they realize that, they've shifted their acquisition focus, so they've bid it differently on those smaller cities. So basically, they've over-invested in those cities because the lifetime value was 85% higher on those cities than in the larger cities, where guess what? The competition was even higher. So it was like a double win for them, in this respect. So mainly, that's what I suggest to these companies. Once they have the segmentation being done, then they can fix a lot of other things, because understanding who are your best customers and your worst customers, what kind of products are making your customers sticky, will allow you to shift the entire organization and to fix what's broken.
I love that you called out the discount shoppers too. There used to be a targeting option. I don't even know if it's there anymore, because I think it's the dumbest targeting option for the most part. But there was a targeting option in Facebook for like people who like coupons or something like that. And I was like, why would you want to necessarily go after them in the first place? It's not the ideal customer to necessarily intentionally target usually. But to your point, one of the things that I look at when we look at customer segmentation for a lot of customers is when you get to the customer lifetime value, the lifetime value of somebody that entered your funnel because of a 30% off coupon as their first purchase is almost always significantly lower than the lifetime value of somebody that came in and bought full price on the first time. And so I don't understand that. I get frustrated sometimes by the people that over optimize towards discounts on a first time purchase. I understand getting somebody in the door. There's some value to that too, right? Like if you never get them in their funnel, you have no chance of getting any value from them. But I think that we oftentimes overemphasize those discounts on those first time purchasers instead of just actually showing what the value of the product is that's being sold, and actually trying to get the right customers through that. And I like that you called out not necessarily saying, hey, we're not going to acquire those customers. We're not going to not acquire those customers, I should say. We're still going to acquire those customers because it reminds me of like a lottery ticket. And if you knew that 1 out of every 10 lottery tickets you purchased was going to be, for $10,000 or something, well, you would just buy as many 10 packs of lottery tickets as you could, knowing that 9 of them are going to suck, but 1 of them is going to be really good. And it's the same thing with going after customers. You can't guarantee that you're only going to get your ideal customer. And just because that ideal customer profile is the 40-year-old ladies or whatever that was there, that doesn't mean that, a 20-year-old man isn't also going to be a very good customer. And you don't necessarily know that going in. You're just saying, statistically speaking, but you're still going to acquire those customers. And you're going to say, hey, we're going to go after these customer segments on purpose. We're going to acquire some of these other customers that might not necessarily always be the perfect ideal customer. This is the idea of broad audiences or things like that. Knowing that maybe 9 out of 10 are not your ideal customer, or 8 out of 10 or whatever that is, but you get those 2 or 3 or 4 that are your perfect customer. And it goes from there. And it's just, I like the idea of like the math that's behind this. It's just a statistics thing.
Yeah. One aspect that it's also neglected, William, in this game of acquisition and optimization is the fact that there are these extremes, like we should be focusing on acquisition or we should be focusing on retention. These are part of the same thing, and customer value optimization means that you're starting with retention in the sense of making sure that you have product market fit. So if you're a new brand, or if you've sold or if you are an established brand which developed your digital channels, chances are that you're a startup there because you don't have all your customer journey sorted out, right? Even though you are a 50 years old retailer, but if you have a 1 year old digital e-commerce activity, then that's a startup for you. So first, you make sure that you have product market fit in the sense of validating what's your customer retention for the products that you're selling against other brands, or the purchase frequency, right? Let's say you're selling cosmetics and we have this benchmark. So if you're selling cosmetics, the chances are that if you are not around 1.75, so that means if a customer is placing 1.75 orders on average, you are below the average. And being below the average and pouring money into acquisition is not the right thing to do, because there are way more cheaper ways to lose money, which means to go there to find out what stops those customers to buy again. Maybe you have a product issue, maybe you have a packaging issue, maybe you have a follow-up onboarding issue, maybe you are not instructing your customers on how to use those freaking creams on their skin, right? So maybe you have other issues than putting more money into ads, which is amazing to do if you have a purchase frequency which is above the average. Let's say you are at 2.4, then invest in acquisition, because it's clear that you have sticky products which are making your customers happy. So mainly CVO, this activity of customer value optimization, allows brands to fix the entire customer journey. It's not only about let's retain all the customers. No, it's about let's make sure that we have customers that are coming back. Let's understand why they are coming back or why they are not coming back. And then let's acquire with the right messaging and with the right products. Because, for instance, there are also some products which are making the customers more sticky than other products. And we've seen this at another brand. They were selling digital cameras, and they realized that with this analysis, looking at the lifetime value by the first bought SKU, they've realized that, hey, we have these two different products. They have pretty much the same AOV. It was like $300. And one of the products were actually lights for the photo studios, and the other product was just a lens, but the AOV was the same. However, the lifetime value was 4 times higher for customers that started to buy from their store with those lights, because they needed other things to buy the equipment for their photo studio. And once they've seen that, guess what? They could bid differently on those products against the other one. As bidding only based on the AOV is misleading. You could leave a lot of money on the table, and you can afford to pay even more to acquire a way more profitable customer down the line.
I completely agree. And that's something that I think that we've seen with a lot of our customers, that we've literally helped them recognize that they're under bidding. And when you think about the fact that your competitors out there might already be onto these ways, if you're not willing to be as aggressive as they are, they're going to beat you. They're going to outbid you, and they're going to capture your customers. Valentin, you think about this in a way that I think is very different from a lot of people. And I speak to a lot of people in the industry here, and I'm unimpressed with a lot of the ways that people are thinking. And I really appreciate the way that you've approached this. I like to get inside look at the man behind the curtain, if you would, and understand a little bit of like what makes you tick and why are you the way you are. Is there something in your childhood that stands out to you that says like, this is a part of why you have become successful?
Poverty, man. In a nutshell, I was so poor. So I'm an ex-poor kid from Bucharest, Romania. I lived my first almost 10 years in communism. I was, instead of sandwiches, imagine that I was using the oven just to get slices of bread getting darker, So basically, I was burning one face of the slice of the bread to pretend that I'm eating a sandwich. So that poverty, thank God, made me very hungry and made me aware that you need to first provide, you need to first give in order to expect something. So this value creation mantra is in my head because I've understood that nobody is giving a damn about you if you are not delivering a valuable experience or a better future reality to them. And back in the days, I remember my first job. For instance, I've been a butcher for 2 hours, and I was 14 years old. I was playing football all day long, and my mom took me in the summer holiday. She took me there in the market. She handed me to those big fat guys, and they promised, we're gonna make a man out of him, ma'am. So my mother left, and I was there with those smell, that raw meat and garlic, and I was doing this Romanian thing called mitite, which are like some meatballs, but they are like longer, some cylinder. And when they got out to smoke, I ran, and that was my first job for 2 hours. But I learned a lot from that experience. I realized, man, this is for real. I mean, I have to do something valuable because otherwise I'll end up here in one of those freaking places. So I think it has to do with this law of under promise and over deliver, providing, giving first, and then expecting to get. And at least that's part of my past and thankfully now I can see how it is to respect this law of value creation.
I'm sorry that you grew up in that environment, but I also appreciate that you called out that there's a mindset that you had that said, despite the circumstances, you used that as a catalyst. And a lot of times I think that we can use difficult circumstances to push us to do better, or we can use it to push us to give up. And we see that happen on both sides of the extreme here, and you use it as a catalyst for change for the better. Is there some kind of like a daily habit that you have that helps you stay focused on being able to have that kind of a mindset? Because inevitably there are tough things that happen as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure that I run into it. I know that others that are listening to this run into those days where it's like, boy, today's the kind of day that I wouldn't mind giving up, right? Or today's the kind of day that it just sucks and I'm just going to go to bed or whatever that might be. But it's like, what is it that you do on a daily basis that helps you stay focused?
Yeah, I want to share something with you, William, and with the audience today. So back in 2016, I got through a burnout. I almost got divorced, so I dodged it, thank God, beautifully. Yeah. And in order to fix my life, I realized that I was working too much. I was identified with the role of being an entrepreneur. I disregarding my family life, and I ended up being a boss at or pretending that I'm the boss at my home while I wasn't there.
Sure.
I got into this meditation retreat. So basically, I stayed there for 10 days. And I meditated. So I wasn't allowed to take notes. I wasn't allowed to use any kind of technology. I was only there. It was a Vipassana retreat, right? And a silent retreat. I spent there, the 4 days were like hell because my mind was going, producing all the negative scenarios that you could imagine. Yeah. So it's, if you haven't done this, I consider this like the first time when I made shower, in my head, it like I was cleaning up my mind by contemplating all the bad thoughts that my mind is producing. And there are this research that 98% of the bad things that you imagine will never happen or stuff like that. Right. So I've started to meditate. I've looked at how am I interpreting the reality, and I realized that it's in my control to interpret the reality in a different manner and then decide what to do next. Because spending 14 hours a day meditating for 10 days allowed me to observe that. And I got into this beautiful state of being at peace with myself, that after that, I kept this habit of meditating and also journaling, because I call this like the mind optimization thing. I mean, I'm into optimization. So you can't have an external reality which is better if your internal reality is not better. And it all starts in your mind, because any object out here, it was an idea at first. So it all starts in your head, right? In how you are modeling the world and how you are modeling the future reality in your life. So I've deconstructed my life as a character, and I've consciously decided I want to get into entrepreneurship. I want to build this company. I want to sell this company. I want to write a book. I want to build a category around customer value optimization. I want to do this type of podcast. I want to meet a lot of people from the entire world. And guess what? I'm doing this. I'm living it, but it was first in my mind. So the habit that I'm doing almost daily, I do have some cheat days, Friday, for instance, but I'm reading my journal, I'm looking at the thoughts that I have, and I started to realize that I have these patterns, I have these anomalies, and I can spot myself putting myself down while it happens. So basically, it's not like now I'm like a super Jedi in my mind, but I can see that this is part of me putting myself down. Like, and I've seen this movie, and I found it hilarious with Stutz, Stutz. This movie from Netflix with Jonah Hill, with the psychotherapist, and he called it the Part X. Part X is like the bad environment, those thoughts that you have that are putting you down. So basically, what I suggest and what I want to share with the world is that it's all in your mind, and if you can train your mind to focus on a better future reality, you will have a better life than focusing on the worst scenario that could happen. So training your mind and taming your mind towards building a better future reality is the habit that we should all be into.
So I want to touch on that real quick here too, because there's a couple of things that I really appreciate about this. I love digging into science, and there's two interesting thoughts. There's a study that was done at the Cleveland Clinic. I believe it was in 2008. For those who maybe sometimes think that, thinking about things or visualizing or whatever, it's hogwash, it's not real or whatever. I want to point you to this study, Cleveland Clinic 2008, where they essentially took a group of people and had them just imagine themselves working out. They didn't actually work out, just imagine themselves working out. And there's these workout routines that they did. And I think it was maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something. And at the end of these 6 to 8 weeks, whatever length of time that was, the people in the group that imagined working out were stronger. And it was like 24% stronger in the particular exercise that they imagined working out in. And it came from just neural synapses that connected to those. So they had more activation of those particular muscles, not necessarily that they gained muscle mass. But the idea there is that it's like they were more capable at the thing that they were trying to imagine doing without actually having done the thing. And this is a very physical thing. And this is, a really impressive thing that I think we can downplay that the importance of visualizing and writing down what it is that you want to do or to achieve or to accomplish, that it's more than just, some mystical idea. There's very real science behind this. And even recently, I believe that they have talked about how our brain potentially aligns itself in 11 dimensions. And so Michio Kaku, I really appreciate him as a mathematician, but they talks about, the potential of 11 dimensions from a mathematical standpoint. And we can hardly fathom what fourth dimension looks like, let alone 11th dimension. But even if that's not entirely true, this is a theory, I suppose, about that. But the idea of, well, we only know what our thoughts are capable when they're inside of our head. But what if our thoughts are not as inside of our head as what we think? What if they are actually activating in 11 dimensions of space and time, and they are actually having some real contributions to what's going to take place in the future? I think it's an important way to think about this, that we do know that there are some very real practical benefits to aligning your brain. So I appreciate that. What are some fun quirks about you? Is there anything that if I was sitting there in the office with you that I would learn about you that I can't tell when I'm on a video call with you?
Well, I'm always taking these notes. These are for this week, for instance. So I'm
Sure.
always doing this type of things. Yeah, lots of notes that I'm taking. It helps me to map out because I'm a visual thinker. And I think that's the thing that I'm doing very often, and it also allows me to rewire to the things that we discussed. I don't know, like with Aegean Airlines 2 weeks ago, stuff like that.
Okay. Last question that I have for you is more of just like a silly game. So I'm wanting to do some kind of like a little silly thing at the end of each one of these podcasts. And so this segment, I'm just going to call, Can You Do That? And it's going to be some kind of a stupid human trick. Can you do this? Can you wiggle your ears? Okay. So here's, both ears, left ear, right ear, left, right, left, right, left, right. Can you wiggle your ears?
Man, I don't know if I can do this, but
all right, let's see.
Try. No. My ears are stuck, man.
Oh, that's okay. Well, do you have any other stupid human trick that you're like, well, I can't wiggle my ears, but I could do this?
Well, I can do this, for instance. I can get this thumb to actually this part. That's my thing.
Oh, yeah, I definitely cannot get that. There's a quite a good gap there. That's pretty good. Okay, so if people wanted to get to know you, reach out to you, they want to buy your book. Is your book officially out, by the way?
It's not officially out. It will be, but it's going to be available at pre-order. However, if someone wants to read it or to get into that list, they can go to theclvrevolution.com and they can get the first chapter for free, and then they can be announced about it. And if someone want to get a hold of me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can always write to me. I'm always responding to all the direct messages, including the ones which are telling me, hey, I have this amazing proposal. As an e-commerce, as a founder, you might be on the lookout for XYZ.
Yeah. Okay. So they can get to know you through email, LinkedIn. Is there a social platform that you are on more often than others?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn but I'm also on Twitter, but most of the time I'm spending on LinkedIn.
And he will teach you all about CLV Revolution and how to contort your thumb to reach your wrist. Valentin, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks a lot, William, for having me, and thanks everyone for listening to me today.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.